In this video, I will show you how to make Ranger incredibly powerful in under 24 gear score. We'll go over the most OP builds and perks, and how you can win more fights. We will end off the video discussing Ranger's weaknesses and how to counter Ranger. Just be warned, if you decide to use this, you may get angry messages. First off, why I feel qualified to share my opinion. I have roughly 3,000 hours of experience in Dark and Darker. I've played every class extensively in solos, duos, and trios, from starter gear all the way to the highest level of gear, including artifacts such as Viola and Elven Bow. Before we get started, hit that subscribe button below, as it allows you to see my helpful videos as soon as they release, so you can always have an edge against other players. Make sure you watch the whole video, as I will show examples of how this playstyle works. Ranger is a nimble, high mobility range class with incredible single target DPS. It has the potential to poke down and even finish enemies while remaining unscathed. Ranger lacks the AoE damage that classes like Wizard have, but this can also be an asset, as it is much harder to friendly fire your team with splash damage. Rangers can peek tight angles and land shots over their teammates' shoulders while they're clashing with the enemy. Ranger also has some of the best melee potential with the spear and backstep combination. This means that even if an enemy catches up to you, you can often win the melee duel regardless. I'm going to show you what I believe to be the most powerful way to play Ranger in under 24 gear score. This setup is also tried and tested in high gear against well-geared and experienced players. First, I'll need to explain the two predominant ways to play Ranger. Number one is Bow Ranger, where your main range damage source is coming from either Survival, Recurve, or Longbow. There's a lot of variety amongst the bows, but more on that later. The second type of playstyle is the Crossbow Mastery Ranger, where you leverage high base damage, armor penetration, and deal large chunks of burst damage. I believe the Crossbow Ranger is stronger at 24 gear score, and I'll explain why in a moment. Don't worry, I'll show you a build for both options so you can decide which you'd prefer. First, we'll go over the Bow Ranger. I've tailored the perks and loadout to make you as powerful as possible in under 24 gear score, and we'll go over those now. Our first perk is Nimble Hands, because 15% action speed with bows is too strong to pass up. Range Weapons Mastery is next, as it's giving us 5 extra strength worth of damage on our bows. Sharpshooter, because landing a headshot on a player with this will add a bonus 15% headshot damage, which will absolutely destroy them. It also helps clearing mobs faster with our bow. And finally, we're going to use Spear Mastery. Spear is our best melee option by far. We gain 7 strength while using it, and with Backstep, we become one of the strongest melee classes in the game. If you don't have a spear from your Squire, it's because you need to do the first few Weaponsmith quests. You can buy a spear from the rotating Weaponsmith shop if it's available, or if you're willing to sacrifice some power, you can take off Spear Mastery for the time being, and replace it with Quick Reload, as the reload speed is very nice. For our skills, the first skill is going to be Backstep, to help us kite with our bow or space enemies with the spear. We can keep them at maximum spear distance, where we can hit them but they can't trade back into us. Our second skill is going to be Quickfire. Quickfire will give us the much needed action speed that we are lacking in this low gear bracket. It's also very versatile, synergizing with whichever bow upgrade we find in raid. Quickshot is a decent contender, so if you're a major quickshot in jar, you're welcome to use that instead, but I find it's weaker at this gear score, especially if you're using a longbow which only fires 2 shots. Alright, time for the strongest build at this gear score, the Crossbow Ranger. I'll explain why it's the strongest in a moment. Our perks are the same, but we swap Nimble Hands for Crossbow Mastery. This gives us a massively increased reload speed while using the crossbow. Combined with Range Weapons Mastery, we're going to get an extra 10 strength worth of damage when using our crossbow. Crossbow also has great innate armor penetration. We can also massively benefit from swapping with a Windlass to chunk out massive damage like we were using an AWP in CSGO. This build gets slept on a lot, and it's tried and tested against experienced players at higher gear score lobbies. The reason I believe the crossbow build is stronger than the regular bow build in this 24 gear score is that Ranger usually benefits from a lot of true damage or additional damage on their rings, gloves, and necklace and upper brackets of gear score. This additional damage benefits from faster hitting weapons such as the bow, but we don't have the luxury of this additional damage at this gear score, so we must rely on our strength, physical power, armor penetration, and high weapon base damage, which the crossbow provides to us.
We can lean even further into this damage fantasy by bringing in a green necklace with physical power, or a green pair of boots with strength and or physical power. We're already sitting at 21 strength, then add 10% physical power from perks, 8% from true shot, and plus 3 from our items for a total of 21 additional strength worth of damage. This means we will be hitting as if we have 42 total strength, all in sub 24 gear score. Alright, we'll go over the ideal Squire setup. If you haven't done your quests, some of these might not be unlocked. The Forest Hood you have to do a quest for, so you'll have to just run Ranger Hood until then. You'll also only have 2 decks on your pants, 1 strength on the chest piece, until you do the Leathersmith and Tailor quests. so get these done as soon as possible. For our boots, we can run Darkleaf if you want to do more damage, or if you want to be able to kite and have more movement speed, you're going to run Lightfoot boots, cloth pants, leather gloves, or riveted gloves for the extra strength. The extra strength pairs really well, especially with the crossbow. Wanderer attire for the 2 dex and strength, and then if you have Forest Hit unlocked, you're going to run that over the Ranger hood because the strength is much better than the agility. If your quests are done, you'll be able to have crossbow unlocked, and longbow and survival bow. If your quests aren't done yet, you're just going to be stuck with the recurve, and then find an upgrade in raid. Or you can check out the weaponsmith and see if there's a spear, or check out the woodsman to buy a crossbow from. Just make sure that the weapon is white or gray, otherwise it'll put you into a higher gear bracket above 24 gear score. If you want to be as strong as possible and you have some money to spend, the best possible thing you can do is bring in Lightfoot boots, something like this, the high move speed roll. Move speed bonus or additional move speed works, but as you can see, these can get quite pricey. So a budget alternative, move speed on something like heavy boots or Darkleaf boots. This is a really good price here. If you just want to deal as much damage as possible and you're not too worried about kiting, you can look for strength and physical power. This would give us 4 strength total worth of damage, which is pretty good. You can also go for additional physical damage on your necklace or on your gloves. Necklace a piece is also a really good option, 5 max health. And you can see our gear score is over here, but it's because of this potion. If I put this potion away, we're back down to 20, and I'm still wearing the necklace and my full kit. With the crossbow, you can run True Shot to deal more damage to anybody who doesn't have a lot of PDR. If you're wanting to bust through tanks, you can take Penetrating Shot, and you'll deal a lot more damage to PDR fighters, clerics, etc., especially if you hit them in the head.
Keep in mind, boots with movement speed rolls will always be the best bet for survivability, as without movement speed, if you get into a bad situation, there's no getting out. Kiting also becomes significantly more difficult without movement speed. Let's go over the weaknesses of Ranger. Ranger is weak in close quarters and short fights that end fast. Ranger wants to chip away at the enemy health bar and take extended fights where their poke damage can thrive, whittling down the enemy health bars until they are too weak to even win if they were to all in melee. They are weaker when they aren't able to corner peek tight angles. Peeking doorways or cover allows them to bully caster classes as they have no way to respond because their projectiles are too large and slow. Shields and PDR can cripple a ranger as they cannot get meaningful damage off before you get into range. Keep in mind, this can flip on its head in geared lobbies if the ranger abuses stacked true damage and the knockback skill to infinitely kite slower classes even if they have a lot of PDR. Ranger is also susceptible to magic damage as it's very difficult for them to build MR, but this only applies to higher gear score brackets. The buff to MR items this patch also might make it easier for Ranger to cover this weakness. The best way to counter Ranger, all in hard and fast before you get chunked out and can no longer fight. Advancing into the Ranger with high PDR, especially with a cleric healing you at your back, is also a great way to counter Ranger. Here's a couple clips to highlight how strong this build can be. Oh no, it's the fighter? Wait. He's on the stairs. Popping down. Oh, he's put down. When you're running the bow version, you always want to look for an upgrade because the squire bows are not very good and bows are really easy to find. Especially if you loot archer mobs, they often will drop green or better bows, and any green bow is going to be an upgrade over the squire bow that you brought in. Make sure you respect your opponents by spacing them effectively. Don't get too close until they're already poked down and you know you can win the fight in melee. The spear should be a last resort. Here's another video for you to watch to gain further expertise into the Ranger class. I highly recommend watching it. Or you can check out these videos to learn more about other classes and the game Dark and Darker as a whole. Make sure you subscribe so you stay updated with the latest helpful videos. Thanks for making it to the end. You are awesome.